I don't know if you saw this article, the Bloomberg article about Healey, but it's 25 pages long, and they're calling her a competitive point guard who's playing to win and keeping Massachusetts number one. But what they didn't realize is that she's keeping Massachusetts on track of being the most expensive, the least employable, and the fastest emptying state, I should say, welfare state in America, in the country. And by the way, the trophy, I guess you could say, is a one-way U-Haul to Florida. Have you guys seen this article? Let me know in the comments. It is outrageous. When I read this article, I couldn't believe what I was reading. The entire thing is wrapped like a campaign brochure. That's what it is. Like that's basically what it is, where they're cheerleading Healey on. And when you look, I'm going to present you the actual numbers here, okay? It doesn't look like a winning season, let me tell you that, right? So we're in a state of decline. We're not in a state of success. That's not what's happening here. If you're just moving here or whatever, that's not what's happening. You guys really need to get out and vote next year. You really need to get out and vote. So this is what I'm going to do. Let me refresh your memory and take you down a trip of memory lane through 2025, or more importantly, over the last couple of years that Healey has been in office under her leadership here. Because the gap between, I would say, what reality is, it's not just wide. It's a canyon so deep that you could fit the entire Massachusetts middle class into it, and you could still have room for the 2026 shelter budget overruns. That's the truth. So let's start with the most basic data. Okay, let's talk about migration. Are people voting with their feet? Bloomberg says Massachusetts is soaring, but the data says people are fleeing. In 2024 alone, Massachusetts lost 27,480 residents to other states. That's net domestic outmigration, which basically means people are packing up and leaving. And not only are they leaving, they're leaving permanently for places like Florida, which ended up gaining 11,000 Massachusetts residents just last year. My friends over, these people do a ton of data. They're excellent. The Pioneer Institute. They found that outmigration is now 10 times higher than it was in 2010. You heard that right. It's 10 times higher. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The state's total population actually grew by 69,000 people. So, of course, we had people leave, but we had people come here. And Healey's team and this article will point this out and say, look, there's growth here. But when you dig through the layers, you start to learn where those people came from. It was 90,217 international immigrants. That was the highest level of inward migration since 1990. And without that influx, Massachusetts would have lost a massive amount of people, massive amount. But really, one of my biggest issues with this is because I'm in this age group. So between the age groups of 25 to 44, that's who's really leaving. Of course, I'm closer to the 44. Not quite there yet. We'll be fair here. But that's who's leaving. So you figure with over 22,000 people leaving on average in both 21 and 22, this is a problem because this is like the productive age, right? People are buying homes. People should be starting businesses, or they should be starting families, and they should be building the tax base. But instead, they're taking their most productive years and they're taking them elsewhere. So other states are winning and we are losing, okay? We're losing, which brings me to a bigger loss, which is the migrant shelter problem, okay? Healey's performance here, I don't think anybody in the entire country could say that it hasn't been pathetic, okay? It's been pathetic. Under Baker, we're at $70 million per year. That's what was spent. Under Healey, the system is close to and or over $1 billion per year, okay? That's the front end cost. I'm not even talking about the back end cost. The back end cost is even more, okay? The back end cost is either more or even, I would say, 1.5 times more. That's what I think. The cost per family is $15,166 per month. I have lots of friends that don't make that per month. It's outrageous. It's $3,496 per week. And here's the thing. Not only is that bad, But as you know, the state auditor has been screaming about no big contracts and the lack of accountability. And of course, those no big contracts have been awarded to Healey's political donors. So we not only do we have billions of dollars floating out the door with minimal oversight, with no background checks at all until what was it, the end of last year, but this article paints Healey as if she's some careful steward of public funds. It couldn't be any further from the actual truth. I don't know if they were just being lazy or if they were being naive. It's one or the other, but that's the way that it goes. Now I want to talk about housing, which is obviously something I know quite a lot about because I'm in the business, right? So this is a funny one too, guys. This is something that they missed that I picked up on. Healey signed something called the Affordable Homes Act. I didn't cover this, by the way, because it was so ridiculous. I couldn't even stand to cover it, but I'll give you some small chunks here, all right? So her administration, they plan to build 222,000 new housing units by 2035. That's in less than 10 years, okay? To try to fix this housing crisis, this housing shortage that we have here. And it would be great if it were achievable. But here's what's actually happening on the ground. In 2023, Massachusetts issued only 11,600 building permits. Now, for context, that's down of an average of about 19,000 per year between the years of 2010 to 2020. Back in 2024, we had roughly about 14,300 permits. So let's do some math here. At the current pace of roughly 12,000 units per year, it would take roughly 18 years to build that 222,000 target. That's how long it would take, okay? Which is substantially longer than what they quoted. And we're only talking about permits here, not the actual construction. There's only been 63,100 units that have been actually built since Healey took office. But remember, and here's a key part that they missed, those units, they were already permitted under the Baker administration. Not only were they permitted under the Baker administration, but they were already breaking ground during that time too. Do you see what I'm saying? And on top of that, in 2023, I can't remember what time in 2023, this is when the stretch codes, all of these green codes took in effect. So the Baker stuff was pre-green initiatives. During the Healey administration, it is post that. So you figure the financing, the permitting, all of that stuff, that was already done under Baker before the new rules existed. Do you see what I'm saying? So basically, the article attributes Healey as they actually said it was even more because they included built units too. It was 100,000 built or ground broken. That's what they said, verbatim, since she took office in 23. But saying something like that is like taking credit and showing up with a pitchfork at the time of harvest when somebody else planted the seeds. Do you see what I'm saying? It is bending the truth. It's bending the truth. That's what it is. And Healey thinks she's taking care of this. I don't know what the hell she thinks she's taking care of. Okay? She needs somebody in there that knows what they're doing. If she wants to do this, she should hire people that know what they're doing, right? You could talk about it all you want. You could sprinkle in all the green initiatives that you want, but people want more housing to be built. That's what it boils down to. Not all the bells and whistles, okay? You're not going to buy a car that doesn't run because it has, the entire front windshield is an OLED screen or something like that predicts traffic if the car doesn't actually go. Do you see what I'm saying? It's shameful. And Massachusetts residents are the ones that are taking the brunt of this. Because on top of it, even if you get to buy a house, now you have to deal with the utility bill. Our electricity is 70% higher than the national average. Natural gas is 65% above the national average. So even if you get the opportunity to be able to afford a house and then get the opportunity to even get an offer accepted, you're screwed. You see what I'm saying? You're screwed anyway, because now you have these outrageously high costs that you have to pay to just live in the house that you now own. And on top of that, speaking of electricity, you figure the Mass Save program. It's a scam. I've said this before. It's a scam. The state auditor, she found in her report that there's a wealth transfer to wealthy communities from suburbs that don't have it off that great. Because guess what? The wealthy communities are the ones that could afford the heat pumps, not the disenfranchised communities. It just is the way that it is. I don't understand how we could keep on trending in the same damn direction, and the legacy media will not cover this. This is the truth, guys. This is the data. This is the truth behind it, okay? I don't understand it, but this is the way it is. I feel like they're playing to win. That playing to win narrative, I feel like it completely falls apart. I really do. Massachusetts is ranked dead last, 50 out of 50 states for private sector job growth between 23 and 24, time that Healey took office. And since January of 2020, Massachusetts has lost a net 37,000 private sector jobs. That's a 1.2% decline. We are one of only 4 states in the entire country to lose private sector employment since 2020, while states like Florida, Texas, and North Carolina added 10 to 12% of that job growth. Retail trade, they lost 27,300 jobs. Manufacturing is down 11,300 jobs. Accommodation and food services is down 18,000 jobs. Even, look at it this way, you know it's bad when professional, scientific, or technical services, if they are down. That's our bread and butter here, or was our bread and butter here, and that is down. It's down 14,600 jobs since its peak in 2022. It's a problem, guys. But Bloomberg wants us to believe that Healey is creating some kind of dark magic, some kind of economic miracle here. She's not. I'm here to tell you she's not. But guess what? You know what? It's even worse when CNBC rankings have to tell the whole story. In 2023, Massachusetts ranked 15th for business competitiveness. Under Healey in 24, we dropped to 38th. That was one of the biggest falls in the entire nation. Then what happened is, I guess you could call it recovering. I don't think it's what it's called. In 2025, we bumped up to 20th. But this is solely due to the fact, and they left this out, this is solely due to the fact that CNBC changed their methodology with states that are receiving less federal funding dependencies. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you were to strip that out, okay, from their methodology, we would be 49th for the cost of doing business, 42nd for business friendliness, and the second most expensive state for wage costs and the third highest utility costs. That's the way that it is. The state got a D+ for regulatory environment. That's what they rated us. It's atrocious. It's atrocious. And I would be okay. Listen, I don't mind being an underdog, but when you don't even notice that you are an underdog to make improvements, that's a problem. You see what I'm saying? That is the problem. Healey thinks that she's some collaborative problem solver that's bringing people together. But collaboration towards what? What end? The state's losing working families. We're bleeding private sector jobs. We're watching the housing market spiral into outrageous costs. And then even if you get to afford a house, even if you get to write an offer and it gets accepted on a house, you're spending substantially more to live here than anywhere else in the country. And for what? And meanwhile, we're spending $1 billion a year plus some on illegal immigration. And we have 53 towns that are behind on budget, that are looking for overrides. How does this happen? How come nobody is talking about this? I know somebody on the news, I can't remember what station it was, has recently brought this up a month after I talked about what was happening with these towns. It's incredible to me. It really is. But I guess here's the bigger picture. We're turning into a welfare state that is propped up from internal immigration, okay, and from the millionaire tax. That's what's going on. And who's getting cut the most is the middle class. That's what's happening. The budget is growing faster than the economy. And I would say red tape and these regulations are choking the housing market. There's no development there. And energy costs are skyrocketing. Private sector jobs, the growth is dead. Nobody could afford to live and work here. That's why people are leaving. And guess what Beacon Hill does? Guess what Beacon Hill has to say about this? More spending, more programs, more promises, and more government jobs. So you want to know what I think? Here's what I think. Here's what I think is next for Governor Healey, like the article said, okay? I think retirement should be next. That's what I think. And I think it's looking like the best option for not only her, but for the residents here in Massachusetts. That's what I think. Unless she does something drastically, unless she does something and actually addresses these problems head on. Like, you're supposed to be the CEO or the leader of the state, okay? It's okay to make mistakes, right? It's okay. But you have to own up to those mistakes and you need to change course. But you need to, at the very least, show people that you are changing course is what I'm trying to say here. That's the key. And she won't even do that. It's like, it's all smoke and mirrors is what I don't know if you guys think the same thing. You could let me know in the comments. I feel like it's all smoke and mirrors. And by the time she's done, there really won't be much left to govern except people that can't afford to leave. That's who's going to be left here. The only people that are going to be left here is the people that can't afford to leave. That's the reality this article is missing. that's it for today's video, guys. I wanted to get this off my chest and not make it too long. I'll have more videos this week. I kind of fixed my computer, by the way, and I have fans mounted on top of it. I have a big problem, but so far so good. I hope this filmed and it was okay. Anyway, thank you for supporting the channel. I know we're almost at 50,000 subs. Maybe we'll get it before the end of the year. Who knows? So that's it. I'll see you tomorrow. See you on the next one.